Doomsday clock is ticking closer to planet annihilation today. It was moved 90 seconds closer to midnight. The Doomsday clock was founded exactly 75 years ago. It attempts to gauge how close humanity is to destroying the world. The hope is to spark conversations about difficult scientific topics. Scientists mentioned the war in Ukraine, the threat of nuclear escalation, and climate change as reasons for the clock's move forward.
We begin with that developing story out of Southwest Houston, where police are investigating after 2 people were found dead at the Cache condos on Forum Park and Sugar Branch Drive. KPRC2's Bill Barajas spoke with neighbors and friends, and Bill, you also spoke to police. Have they been able to tell you how these 2 people died and their connection?
Well, the investigation is still in its early stages here, but police say it appears to be an apparent murder-suicide. Both victims suffering gunshot wounds. Neighbors and friends say the victims were dating, and one of them was from El Salvador. Close friends say this is who they knew as Maria Fer. Neighbor Jorge Espino says she was a transgender woman in her early 20s.
Triste porque pues estaba bien jovencito.
Espino said it's sad. Espino says he last saw Maria Fer on Tuesday. Detectives with the Houston Police Department say they were alerted to the apartment after neighbors reported a foul smell.
The bodies are in a decomposed state, but that's going to be for the medical examiner to determine.
And Maria Fer's sister was also on scene. She did not want to go on camera, but provided us with those photos you saw in this story. She said they plan to send Maria Fer's body back to El Salvador. We're live in Southwest Houston. Bill Barajas, KPRC.
Emergency at Universal Studios Hollywood. A stadium full of people left stunned when the world-famous Waterworld stunt show suddenly stopped and an unconscious stunt performer is pulled from the giant pool and rushed to the hospital. Eyewitness News reporter Leanne Suter live at Universal City with new video and word from eyewitnesses. Leanne.
Mark, the shocking ending to that show captured on camera by several witnesses as the performer's lifeless body was pulled from the water.
Holy An unexpected and life-threatening ending to the Waterworld show at Universal Studios Hollywood as a performer is pulled from the water unconscious.
I was like, oh my God, someone might be drowning. And I was like, oh, it might be the person that just did the drop. Like, did something happen?
Daisy Anguiano capturing the dramatic scene on camera. It happened during this scene of the show when the villain catches fire and falls into the water near the big finale. Today, something went seriously wrong in front of hundreds of people.
It was a full house, so the whole audience saw that.
Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the delay, but we have an emergency on the set.
Daisy says the music suddenly stopped, and then she saw a cast member run to grab a life preserver on set as several jumped into the water.
Everyone that's in the staff and everyone that's cast and crew is, doing this all together, not letting this person, maybe hopefully not letting this person, die. He was unconscious while they were dragging him from the water.
Other witnesses say workers performed CPR on the man before paramedics arrived and continued the life-saving efforts. He was rushed to the hospital. Universal says details surrounding the event are under review as safety is a top priority. Daisy, who goes to the theme park every Monday, says she never expected something so traumatizing to happen during one of her favorite shows.
The thought of them, getting injured is very low because they've done it for so long.
Like so many other witnesses, Daisy is praying that that performer will survive. At this point, no word on the man's condition. Live in Universal City, Leanne Suter, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
More tonight about the contractor who died in a tragic accident on Monday at the Adventureland amusement park in Altoona. Family tells KCCI 20-year-old Zach Oleski was crushed by a steel beam he was carrying when he slipped on some ice. They say Oleski was working for Sky High Coaster, building Adventureland's new Flying Viking ride. The family also says Oleski's father-in-law is the owner of Sky High Coaster. In a statement, Adventureland's parent company, Palace Entertainment, says it's saddened by this tragic accident and extends its deepest sympathies to the family.
course, thankfully, have calmed down for us tonight, but you are standing right there in front of really the evidence of the crimes that happened earlier.
Yeah, Eric, what started as a demonstration against a proposed Atlanta Police Training Center quickly turned into a violent protest when marchers took to the street. You'll take a look. This Truist Bank right here, the front window blown out by protesters throwing rocks and bricks at it. And across the street, the Wells Fargo right there also suffering damage when those protesters went after that building as well. They've already boarded it up. They also set a police cruiser on fire. Tensions boiled over tonight. Just a protester was killed in an exchange of gunfire with Georgia State troopers. Armed with bricks and fireworks, some protesters turned violent in downtown Atlanta Saturday night.
At that point, saw people smashing out taillights of cop cars and windows. And
David Abrahams watched as a firework was used to set an Atlanta police cruiser on fire.
What I saw wasn't peaceful. Yeah, no, I mean, blowing up cop cars and throwing fireworks at police officers is not peaceful.
Once the protest turned violent, police started swarming the area.
There was at least 15 cop cars at the intersection. And next thing I know, the protesters start taking off.
Before the violence, there was a peaceful demonstration Saturday at Underground Atlanta. Stand up, fight back! The group was there to protest a proposed training center for Atlanta police and demand an independent investigation into the death of Manuel Terán. Terán was killed at Entrenchment Creek Park when law enforcement worked to clear the woods of activists Wednesday, camped out protesting the site they call Cop City. The GBI says Terán opened fire, injuring a state trooper, and that's when troopers shot back, killing Terán.
We can debate the circumstances of what happened Wednesday all day. I'd like to see an independent investigation of that.
What was supposed to be a peaceful demonstration to demand answers in Terán's death and put a stop to the proposed training center for Atlanta police took a turn. APD says the destruction was stopped quickly and 6 protesters were arrested.
People were upset, and you could see it. So we watched them take out some frustration.
I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know if it was a parade or what. And then once I seen them start breaking cop car windows and the cop car caught on fire, I was like, yo, this is no joke.
There is still a law enforcement presence out here tonight, but many of them have already left. They've reopened Peachtree Street here in downtown Atlanta. The police car that was towed away, but again, the evidence of what happened here still here tonight, even though the bank across the street has already been boarded up. We're, of course, going to be learning more over the coming days and hours, but for now, live in downtown Atlanta tonight, Tyler Fingert, Fox 5 News.
Yes, Tyler, good news here. No.
Mass shootings in 3 days with 18 people dead and even more injured.
The communities of Monterey Park and Half Moon Bay shattered by gun violence. 7 people are dead and 1 is in critical condition following shootings at 2 farms in Half Moon Bay tonight. Thank you for joining us. I'm Laura Painter.
And I'm Chris Thomas. Deputies just held a news conference providing an update. They confirmed the suspect is now in custody.
This is a devastating tragedy for this community and the families touched by this unspeakable act of violence.
San Mateo County Sheriff Christina Corpus says deputies were called around 2:22 p.m. Monday for reports of a shooting in unincorporated San Mateo County. When officers arrived, they found 4 people shot and killed, and a 5th person was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. Shortly afterwards, 3 additional victims were found dead at a separate location about a mile away. Deputies say both locations are farms on large rural properties in Half Moon Bay.
There's people that live at the location as well. So, you know, it was in the afternoon when kids were out of school, and for children to witness is unspeakable.
Video of the arrest of the suspected gunman was caught on camera. Put your hands up! You can see law enforcement pulling their guns and aiming it at the suspect as they pulled him out of a car. Deputies say he is Chun-Li Zhao, a 67-year-old resident of Half Moon Bay. He was actually located inside his vehicle at a sheriff's substation.
Zhao is believed to have acted alone, and there is no further threat to this community.
And there has to be a change. This is not an acceptable way for modern society to live and conduct its affairs. We are deeply grateful for law enforcement for their work this evening.
Zhao is thought to be a farm worker, but a motive for the shooting is still unknown at this time. We're told he's cooperating and being interviewed by investigators.
Gun violence in this country is at completely unacceptable levels. It's really hit home tonight.
Now, we do have a crew there in Half Moon Bay, and we'll have live updates on the investigation starting tomorrow morning on ABC 10 News.
Turning to the latest on the deadly mass shooting in Monterey Park. The death toll has risen to 11, one victim dying at the hospital. That after police say 72-year-old Hu Can Tran fired 42 rounds at the Lunar New Year celebration at a dance studio. The first victim was shot in the head multiple times as she was backing out of the parking lot, her dance partner sitting in the passenger seat.
He saw the wound on her head, and he tried to cover it with his hands to stop the bleeding.
Police say Tran had a limited criminal history and arrests back in the 90s for unlawful possession of a firearm. A longtime acquaintance says he was a regular at both dance studios, that he distrusted most people and spent much of his time alone.
4 of the victims have been identified. They are 65-year-old Mimi Nyan. Her niece says she loved to dance and was looking forward to celebrating the Lunar New Year with family. 63-year-old Leland Lee, 68-year-old Alvaro Valentino, and 57-year-old Siljuan Yui. Tonight, a vigil was held to honor the victims, and ABC 10's Luke Clary is there live in Monterey Park tonight.
Yeah, and Luke, you've been on the ground there for the last 2 days, watching this all unfold and evolve. A heartbreaking few days, Luke.
Laura, Chris, people are working their way through this. We're here in front of Star Dance Studio again tonight, where the memorial has only grown in the last 48 hours. This is a community that is grieving together. Dark days in Monterey Park,
where our joyous Lunar New Year celebration was turned utterly upside down.
Candlelight offers us a glimpse of the sorrow for those who were killed or injured by a gunman on Lunar New Year's Eve.
It is dark, but we feel the light of your face, and we feel the love of your souls.
The town on sunny Los Angeles County's eastern edge has been described as America's first suburban Chinatown. But Monterey Park is a place where people of different colors and tastes live side by side.
My family would always tease me, I'd rather eat Mexican food than Chinese food. I'm sorry, you know.
Terry Gore's home on the hill and 6 decades in this city give us perspective.
Yeah, I've been here 60 years and other than a lot more people, so the traffic's crazy. You know? You just, like any small community, it doesn't feel real.
Now her community joins a club no place wants to be part of, an American city knocked to its knees by gun violence.
Unfortunately, we aren't going to be the last. And I think that's the thing that bothers you.
This community is resilient.
Monterey Park is grieving together.
Thank you so much for coming together. Gracias por todos. Thank you. Xie xie. We are one people.
And I have to tell you, to learn of another deadly mass shooting while covering this here in the state of California, it was surreal. But people are working through this. This is a community that is grieving together, and there will be more memorials. There will be more vigils as this community works its way through this and tries to heal. Laura, Chris.
Yeah, Luke, and certainly stories and reporting like yours are really helping paint a picture of the community.
Coverage begins tonight with the deadly shooting yesterday. It starts right here, Youth Outreach Center. In the last few hours, the Des Moines police have released more information about the teenage victims and the suspect. The 2 teenagers killed are 18-year-old Gianni Dameron and 16-year-old Rashad Carr. Will Keeps, a community activist and the founder of Starts Right Here, was also seriously injured. Keeps was severely hurt. He remains in a Metro hospital tonight. Police say this was a gang-related shooting. An 18-year-old is now charged. KCCI's James Stratton walks us through how this shooting happened, step by step.
And Steve, the criminal complaint that we read this morning says 18-year-old Preston Wall cut off an ankle monitor that he was wearing just 16 minutes before that shooting walked into a common area at Starts Right Here, right behind me, and started shooting. That criminal complaint also alleges that he intended to shoot the two that he also allegedly killed. Those two, as you mentioned, 18-year-old Gianni Dameron and 16-year-old Rashad Carr. Starts Right Here founder Will Keefe severely hurt in serious condition tonight, according to his family. 18-year-old Preston Walls charged with murder, attempted murder, and criminal gang participation. He was on probation for drug charges and on pretrial release for interference with official acts with a firearm, the reason he had that ankle monitor on in the first place. Starts Right Here is a nonprofit where DMPS students get individualized learning plans to help them keep and get the credits that they may need to graduate. We spoke with interim superintendent Matt Smith this afternoon, who said DMPS is just devastated by what happened yesterday.
It's hard to put into words, the pain students and staff are feeling. None of us are ever going to get used to this. It hadn't even been a year since a shooting on the campus of East High School.
And that shooting on the campus of East High School also killed one. Starts Right Here is closed for the rest of the week. We're told students get individualized learning plans here behind me. It's not as simple as just putting them back into their home high school like Lincoln or East or wherever that may be. So the staff from DMPS who also work at Starts Right Here will be reaching out to them individually for lesson plans and learning plans, hopefully virtually, along of course with any counseling that the students who witnessed the shooting here may need. We're live for you tonight in Des Moines. I'm James Stratton, KCCI 8 News.
An ugly group assault on the subway early this morning targeted a rider who happens to be a meteorologist for Fox News. The NYPD confirms 3 teenagers have been arrested, including 2 15-year-olds and a 17-year-old. Police say Adam Klotz was on the southbound 1 train when he told a group of teenagers to stop smoking on the train, which led to the assault. Speaking with Fox 5, Klotz tells us the group of teens lit a joint and then used the lighter to set the hair of an older man on fire. Klotz says when he intervened to help the man, the teens turned on him, repeatedly punching and stomping him. When he was down, he says the attackers even moved to a second car following him when he tried to get away from them.
On the subway. And I got really beat down and no one else spoke up. A lot of people just watched me get beat down. They were quick to help me as soon as the beat down was over, but no one wanted to step in and stop me from getting stomped on. I guess I get it. No one wants to go through that because they just watched me try it and it didn't work out.
Klotz says despite this experience, the attack will not prevent him from continuing to use mass transit in the future.
And work in a Fort Worth neighborhood where a street takeover turned deadly. Say street racing is a real problem. It happened last night at the intersection of University Drive and White Settlement Road. Officers came to break up the takeover event, but one of the drivers sped away. Police say she ended up crashing her Camaro. She and one of her passengers died. Fox 4's David Santandri live in Fort Worth. David.
Yeah, the deadly crash came after an illegal street racing takeover event in the middle of this busy intersection behind me. Now, again, we know street racing is illegal, but still some people in North Texas continue to do it. We see it in Dallas, we see it in Fort Worth, we see it in places in between. People on this side of town say it's out of control. Fort Worth police say the driver of a red Camaro sped away from a street racing scene, lost control, and crashed Sunday night. A female driver and 3 men were inside. The woman and one of the men died.
Now every day when I come to the office, I'll think about those 2 lives that were lost.
The crash happened in front of Crash Brothers Paint and Body. Owner Chris Garcia says he's thinking of the families of those killed.
It's a very sad thing, and that'll be always hard for anyone to overcome. So the best to them.
Police responded to reports of cars blocking the intersection of University Drive and White Settlement Road while doing burnouts. Officers arrived to break it up, activating overhead emergency lights. Police say the driver of the Camaro shut off her headlights and drove away. Police did not chase it. It appears the driver sped off along White Settlement Road for about a mile, but failed to navigate this traffic circle and drove down this hill. Eventually, the Camaro flipped and 2 people inside lost their lives. People who live in this area say, unfortunately, street racing and stunting is far too common. I spoke with the president of the Linwood Neighborhood Association, and she tells me, quote, "This has been an ongoing issue every Sunday night. Last night's situation, as soon as I heard it, I knew exactly what was happening." The surviving male passengers, 21 and 20 years old, are stable in hospitals. No charges will be filed against them, according to police. You can still see signs of the crash outside Garcia's business, including tire marks on the hill.
Probably within the last 3 weeks, another car went down just over there. You can still see the tracks in the grass.
Additional tire marks off to the right highlight another vehicle Garcia says recently drove down the hill. Police did not release an approximate speed the Camaro was traveling when it crashed. Garcia says speed and this roundabout is a recipe for disaster.
There's just been too many accidents here, and something has to change.
We are still waiting for the Tarrant County Medical Examiner's Office to release the names of those 2 people who were killed. Clarice.
Pakistan's energy minister says the national electricity grid in that country has been restored after its worst breakdown in months. Despite this claim, some areas in the country, including major cities, are still without power. Tens of millions of people were left in the dark after the major power cut. Authorities have blamed the outage on a voltage surge after generators were temporarily switched off to save energy. The nationwide blackout cut supplies to water pumps, leaving many without access to drinking water. It's the second grid failure in 3 months.
6-year-old woman is behind bars tonight, accused of killing 27-year-old Nakeba Collier. Investigators say Angela Baxter was randomly shooting at cars last week and shot Collier on Powers Drive in Orange County.
Collier was driving home at the time with food for her husband and daughters. West 2's Haley Crimble-Home joins us in studio with what we know about Baxter. Now, Collier's family is reacting to this arrest. Haley.
So according to the arrest affidavit, Baxter told deputies about 2 different incidents, one in which she shot into the air and another time when she shot at multiple vehicles, both times because she thought people were following her. I talked to Nakeba Collier's aunt tonight. They got the news about the arrest today, too. They're still processing it.
It was, like a nightmare.
That's how Shamarla McCoy, Nakeba's aunt, describes the phone call last week when she found out her niece was killed.
We just couldn't understand anything, why? I think that's just the question that we all have. Why, who, what, when, we're asking, who would do this? Why would anyone do this?
Today, the family found some of those answers. 56-year-old Angela Baxter was arrested. According to the police affidavit, 2 victims came forward saying they were shot at by a woman in a red car on the same day Nakeba was killed. One victim pointed police to a witness who said they saw Angela shoot at one of the cars. After a photo lineup and a search warrant executed at Baxter's home, the affidavit says police found multiple firearms. An analysis found one of them fired the bullet that killed Nakeba.
We want to keep her in people's hearts and minds so that they can remember who she was.
And who she was, McCoy says, is smart, funny, and a great mom. Right now, they can't focus on what they'd like to see happen next.
We're just planning her, we're planning her funeral. We are planning to bury her, because someone took her from us. And, we're angry, we're hurt.
She says they're hoping detectives and prosecutors can do what they need to for Nakeba's family.
We will never, see Nakeba again. We will never get her back. So all we have left is justice. That's it.
Right now, the family is planning services for Nakeba next week. They're raising money through GoFundMe.
Twisted metal and shattered glass in the parking lot of an Elizabethtown Denny's.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like this.
While inside the Denny's parking lot, the wind knocks down the sign, which lands on a car with 3 people inside. Security footage from a nearby restaurant caught the exact moment the sign fell.
When we arrived, it was determined, in fact, that there were occupants inside the vehicle that the sign landed on. The occupants did have to be extracted.
2 women and 1 man were inside the car. The man and one of the women were transported to Baptist Health Hardin. The other woman, who was 72 years old, was taken to U of L Hospital where she died.
It's certainly very windy out here, and I'm certain that did have a factor or was involved in this.
This all happened around 1:30 when the winds were anywhere between 40 and 60 miles per hour.
The wind is insane. I've never seen this much wind.
You can see the sheer size of the sign and what it did to the car. Crews used a crane to lift the sign off the flattened car. It took them around 4 hours to clean things up.
Died after that Denny's sign fell last week. 77-year-old Lloyd Curtis was one of 3 people inside a car parked at the Denny's in E-Town last week when a large sign fell to the ground. Curtis died at his home in Adair County. An autopsy will determine whether his death was linked to that crash. Curtis's wife, Lynn, was also in the car and died shortly after the accident. Investigators say high winds are partly to blame for bringing down that sign.
People are in for a rough morning. At least one tornado touched down in the Houston area, and officials are calling the damage catastrophic. This is video from Pasadena, about 15 miles southeast of Houston. One person is reportedly hurt, but we have not heard of any deaths, thankfully. Still, the storm was strong, ripping the roof off homes and businesses and downing trees and power lines. More than 40,000 Texans are still in the dark right now. Those who rode it out say they've never seen anything like it.
Like chaos and very loud. The metal was crashing, the glass was breaking out. It was extremely loud.
Volunteers quickly came to the rescue, moving dozens of the animals from this now uninhabitable shelter in Pasadena, Texas. The city's police chief says the cleanup from all of this will be extensive.
They're trying to open the car to get the person out, but he couldn't.
Tragedy in Marin County tonight after a Tesla's crash through a fence and into a pool. Good evening. This Saturday night, I'm Christina Rendon. CHP officers are trying to figure out tonight why a Tesla crashed into a pool in San Rafael today, killing one woman. The crash happened on Bonnie Banks Way early this morning. KTVU's Tom Vakar is live at the scene tonight after speaking with neighbors who woke up to sounds of a loud boom and water splashing. Tom.
Well, we are in the very earliest of the investigational stages. The name of the victim has yet to be disclosed, and of course the cause yet to be really known. On Saturday at 7:26 a.m., the California Highway Patrol got a call of a car into a residential swimming pool at the corner of Point San Pedro Road and Bayview.
Our preliminary investigation showed that the 2019 Tesla was traveling westbound on Point San Pedro Road, approaching Bayview Drive. And for unknown reasons, the driver veered to the right and it went across Bayview and crashed into a fence.
It crashed through a fence going directly into the pool, slamming into its wall, where the occupant, who was not wearing a seatbelt, died. The home and pool belongs to Barbara Kuffner, who was jolted from her sleep.
I heard a loud boom and then like water, and I thought that it was like thunder and lightning and rain, and I saw flashing lights in the backyard in the pool.
Kuffner's friend and guest Chris immediately ran to assist.
Chris was there trying to open the car to get the person out. But he couldn't, and he said call 911. So I called 911 and they came like within 5 minutes.
A multi-pronged investigation is only beginning.
At this time it's unknown if drugs or alcohol played a role.
Now, this is hardly the first car that ever went into a swimming pool, but of course this car is a Tesla, and that raises a lot of issues that will have to be investigated.
Of course it raises an issue with me because I've seen this on the news with Teslas many times. Was the car on auto drive or autopilot, whatever they call it?
We don't know if any kind of automated systems were activated. I believe we can probably pull up those records to see if it was or was not.
Now, Teslas have considerable ability to record the operations of many systems and subsystems, including critical as well as controversial systems such as the autopilot, and you can be sure that's going to be part of the investigation. Report.
been a busy and violent day in South Florida. Police are investigating a shooting that sent one man to the hospital in Broward. And in Miami-Dade, police say they were forced to open fire on a man, the second police-involved shooting in just 3 days. CBS 4's Anna McAllister is live from the scene of that shooting in Miami Gardens. And Anna, what have you been able to find out?
Yeah, Lauren, police have been here on the scene at the Walden Pond Apartments for hours collecting evidence. But shortly before this shooting, there was a massive police presence in Broward after a man was shot and the suspect fled. Miami-Dade crime scene vehicles rolled into the Walden Pond Apartments in Miami Gardens Tuesday night after police say a 15-year veteran of the force shot a man. According to police, officers were working an ongoing fraud investigation around 4 p.m. when they saw a transaction between two men and confronted them.
During the contact with the individuals, a struggle ensued. At that point during the struggle, one of the subject's hoodie came off. The hooded shirt came off, and it revealed a firearm in the waistband of the individual.
Police say the man reached for the gun on his waist, and that's when the officer shot him. The suspect was taken to a local hospital in stable condition, but police say he and the other man involved will face charges. Residents on the scene shocked to hear about what happened in their neighborhood.
I don't think most police officers live in our communities, so they're not aware of what goes on in our community. I think more police involvement with community will kind of bridge the gap.
Shortly before the police-involved shooting in Miami Gardens, the Broward County Sheriff's Office responded to a shooting on Bailey Road in North Lauderdale. According to witnesses, a gunman shot a man multiple times in a plaza parking lot before fleeing on foot. And I told my friends, hurry up, let's go. The victim, a man in his 30s, was airlifted to a local hospital, while dozens of police scoured the streets and circled the air to locate the suspect. And the condition of the man who was shot in Broward County is unknown at this time. And right now, there's no word on a suspect in Miami Gardens. No one else was injured in this police-involved shooting, and the investigation is ongoing. Reporting live in Miami Gardens, Anna McAllister, CBS 4.
8 people were shot tonight, including an 18-year-old man who was killed. This happened shortly after 6 o'clock at a gas station at Seminary Avenue and MacArthur Boulevard in East Oakland. As KTVU's Amber Lee reports, family members of the victims have been grieving right outside Highland Hospital.
Relatives of shooting victims gathered just outside Highland Hospital. One family received devastating news. Relatives emerged from the hospital visibly distraught and grieving. They identified the victim who died at the hospital as 18-year-old Mario Navarro of Oakland.
Well, I'm heartbroken right now. I'm about to go see my family inside.
The shooting took place at or near a gas station on MacArthur Boulevard and Seminary. Police say they were alerted by a ShotSpotter activation shortly after 6 p.m. Monday.
Upon arrival, they located a shooting scene, they located casings, but no victims. Shortly thereafter, our communications division received notification of multiple gunshot wound victims who self-transported to local hospitals.
Police say there are 7 other gunshot victims who are expected to survive. One woman tells me her sister is among those who were shot. Investigators collected evidence from 2 cars that may have transported the gunshot victims to the hospital.
It's really disheartening and difficult, to deal with. But again, we're relying on community support to help solve this incident.
Police investigators say multiple people fired their guns, possibly from across the street. One relative says the teen killed had graduated from high school last year.
He was really sweet. He was he kind of liked music, but he was not really bad person. He was really good.
Police say they're looking at what led up to the shooting, including the possibility that a music video was being videotaped at the time. In Oakland, Amber Lee, KTVU, Fox.
Of course, in all of this is there are families in Half Moon Bay and beyond who haven't heard from their loved ones or have gotten unimaginable news tonight. The sheriff's office opened a family reunification center at Ides Hall on Main Street. We want to go now to Betty Yu. She's live there now. She's been talking to people for hours, including people who really worry that their loved ones may have been killed. Betty?
That's right, Sarah. And the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office have kept the media at a distance from the reunification center behind me. But tonight I did speak with one woman over the phone. She was here earlier, and she confirmed that her partner was among the victims. Alicia Ortega spent the afternoon anxious and distraught, trying to get in touch with her partner, who worked as a manager at a mushroom farm just off Highway 1.
When was the last time you heard from him?
In the morning when he go to work is the last time I hear from him, and pretty much is it.
You think he's in there?
Yes.
Her worst nightmare became a reality hours later. She told me that the love of her life, Martin Martinez, was shot inside the mushroom farm, and his co-worker witnessed the crime. Loved ones of victims and those living in the active crime scene area gathered at the Family Reunification Center on Main Street Monday night. Coastal residents and volunteers from the nonprofit Alice, which responds to natural disasters and emergencies, answered the community's call for help.
You know, I walked into my boss's office at 4 and I said, there's 4 people dead in my town, I have to go. And I mean, the farm workers on the coast have a rough life as it is, and this is just, it's terrible.
Kate Shea and Lizette Diaz helped bring blankets, warm meals, and snacks to those affected by the mass shooting. They started off the year volunteering to help storm victims who are still flooded out of their homes.
It's been a rocky road the past couple of weeks. I mean, the community comes out. When we reach out, the community does come to help.
Lizette is still trying to process the sudden burst of violence in her quiet agricultural town.
I was shocked. I mean, I would have never thought something like this would happen in a small, close community. We're all very close. We all know each other. We know our neighbors. We know the people who work within our community. It was heartbreaking.
And we are still waiting for all of the victims to be identified by the coroner. Sarah?
Betty, that woman who shared the story about her husband is just so incredibly devastating. I can't even imagine how she's feeling now. What did you learn about the people that work on this farm?
Well, I spoke with a delivery driver who works at one of those farms, and he says that it's mostly a mix of Chinese and Mexican farm workers. He also mentioned that he left that site just off Highway 1 today around 10 a.m. He didn't notice anything unusual about the work site. And of course, hours later, all of that changed. Sarah?
All right, Betty, just a horrible, horrible situation for